Darren was an ordinary worker on the trade station known as Outpost 9. His job was simple: he checked cargo containers, logged damaged shipments, and made sure broken pods were hauled away. The station floated above a dusty planet with no name worth remembering, and most people only passed through on their way to somewhere more important. Darren liked it that way. Life was quiet, and quiet meant safe. One late shift, when most workers had gone, Darren was walking past the cargo bay. The lights flickered overhead, and the smell of burned wires reached his nose. He frowned, knowing something had gone wrong. A warning signal blinked on his wrist screen, showing that a pod had arrived damaged. He sighed and walked toward it, expecting another long night of reports. The pod lay half open, sparks jumping from its side. Metal plates were bent inward, as if the pod had been hit by weapons fire before landing. Darren crouched to inspect the damage. At first, he thought the pod was empty, but then he heard a sound: soft breathing, uneven, almost like a whimper. His heart tightened. He leaned closer and saw movement inside. There, hidden in the shadows of the pod, was a child. Not a human child. Its skin was pale silver with faint lines that glowed like stars when the light hit them. The child's eyes were large, filled with fear, and its small hands clutched the edge of the pod. Darren froze, unsure what to do. The law was clear. No worker was allowed to keep or hide alien refugees. If he reported the child, the station guards would take it away, and no one would see it again. Darren did not know much about other species, but he knew enough to see that this child was no threat. It was only frightened and alone. "Hey," Darren whispered, his voice calm. "It's all right. I won't hurt you." The child stared at him, silent. Its glowing marks brightened for a moment, then dimmed, as if reacting to his voice. Slowly, Darren reached out his hand, not too close, only enough to show he meant no harm. The child did not move away. That was enough for him. Darren made his choice. He could not leave the child here to be taken. He gently lifted it from the pod. It was lighter than he expected, but he felt the faint pulse of life in its small frame. The child trembled against him, but after a moment, it rested its head on his shoulder as if deciding to trust him. He carried the child out of the cargo bay and back to his small room on the lower levels of the station. Few people visited that part, and he knew how to avoid the security cameras. Once inside, he set the child down on his bunk. "What am I going to do with you?" he muttered. The child watched him with wide eyes. It did not speak, but its glowing lines shifted like flowing water. Darren guessed it could understand him in some way. He gave a small smile and said, "I'll call you Taro. That's easier for me than waiting for you to tell me your name." The child blinked, and the glow on its skin pulsed softly. Darren took it as a sign of agreement. For the next few hours, Darren searched for supplies. He brought water and some food. To his surprise, Taro accepted the water but ignored the food. Instead, the child touched the glowing marks on its skin, and the light spread across its arms and chest, as if feeding on its own energy. Darren had never seen anything like it. Night passed quietly, but Darren could not sleep. His mind kept racing. Who had sent this child? Why was it in a damaged pod? Who was chasing it? He looked at Taro sleeping peacefully on his bunk and knew he could not turn him in. The law did not matter now. The child needed him. The next day, rumors spread across the station. Traders spoke of patrol ships searching for someone. Security officers checked docking records more often than usual. Darren listened carefully but said nothing. He understood then someone important wanted the child. That meant danger for both of them. That evening, as he sat beside Taro, Darren heard heavy boots in the hallway. He quickly dimmed the lights and hushed the child. Voices came from outside his door. "Another sweep," one man said. "They say the missing one is small, maybe hiding with station workers." "Who would be foolish enough to risk hiding it?" the other answered. Darren held his breath until the voices faded. Taro pressed close to him, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Darren whispered, "Don't worry. I won't let them take you." From that moment, his resolve hardened. He knew life would never be quiet again. He had stepped into something far greater than cargo checks and station routines. Protecting this child meant danger, but it also felt right. For reasons he could not explain, he felt chosen for this task. As the days passed, Darren noticed strange things. When danger approached, Taro's skin glowed brighter, almost as if warning him. Once, when a guard came too close to their hiding place, the child's glow spread into the walls, and the lights in the corridor flickered until the guard walked away. Darren realized Taro was no ordinary refugee. Late one night, Darren sat at his desk, staring at an old hollow map of the sector. He whispered to himself, "If they're searching the station, it won't be safe much longer. We'll need to leave soon." He looked back at the child, who was now awake and watching him quietly. The glow in Taro's eyes seemed almost human in its emotion. Darren felt something stir inside him, something like hope. Whatever Taro was, whatever powers or secrets he carried, Darren knew one thing with certainty. This child was now under his protection. And he would not let anyone take him away. The stars outside the window shimmered, endless and cold. But for the first time in years, Darren felt that his life had meaning. He was no longer just a worker lost in the routine of the station. He was a protector. And somewhere beyond those stars, he knew enemies were already on their way. The station felt different after that night. Darren had walked its halls for years without trouble, but now every corner seemed filled with danger. Patrols doubled. Security gates scanned more carefully. Strangers whispered in the markets about ships searching nearby space. The air of Outpost 9 was heavy with suspicion. Darren moved with caution, carrying out his daily duties so no one would suspect him. But his mind was always on the child waiting in his small quarters. He worried about leaving Taro alone, yet he could not risk drawing attention by skipping work. Every shift felt longer, and every sound made him glance over his shoulder. One evening, after finishing his inspection of damaged cargo, Darren returned to his quarters with a small bag of supplies. As he entered, he saw Taro sitting on the bunk, the glowing marks on his skin faint but steady. The child looked tired but calm. When Darren set the bag down, Taro raised his head and met his eyes. "They're looking for you," Darren said softly, even though he knew Taro might not understand the words. "And if they find you, it won't end well. We need a plan." Taro tilted his head, the glow in his eyes dimming slightly. Darren wondered if the child sensed his worry. He sighed and began to unpack the supplies: water, a blanket, a few pieces of dried food, and a small repair tool he had borrowed. He would need to prepare for escape. The next day, news spread across the station. A patrol ship had docked. Its crew were not ordinary guards but enforcers from a distant world. Their armor was black, and their faces hidden behind helmets. They questioned traders, searched storage bays, and even checked passenger quarters. People spoke in hushed tones, afraid of their presence. Darren kept his head low as he worked. He knew these enforcers were not here for trade disputes. They were hunting Taro. That night, as he slipped back into his room, Darren found Taro standing near the small window, staring at the stars. The child's glow was brighter than usual, casting soft light across the walls. Darren stepped closer and whispered, "Do you know they're coming for you? Can you feel it?" Taro turned and looked at him, and for a moment, Darren thought he saw fear mixed with trust in those strange glowing eyes. He knelt beside the child and said firmly, "I promised I'd protect you. That means we can't stay here." But leaving the station was not simple. Darren had no ship of his own. He needed credits, clearance codes, and a way to avoid patrols. He thought about the traders he knew, the smugglers who asked few questions. Perhaps one of them could help, but that meant more risk. 2 nights later, Darren acted. He carried Taro wrapped in a cloak, moving through quiet corridors where security cameras were less active. He knew the paths well, and the hum of machinery covered their steps. They reached the lower docking bays, where small merchant ships loaded cargo. Darren approached a man he knew, an older trader named Bran. Bran had smuggled goods before, and Darren trusted him more than most. "I need passage," Darren whispered. Bran frowned. "Passage where?" "Anywhere away from this station. Somewhere the patrols won't follow." Bran studied him carefully. "You're hiding something, Darren. I can see it in your eyes." Darren hesitated. Then, slowly, he pulled the cloak aside just enough for Bran to see Taro's face. The child's skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Bran's eyes widened, and he stepped back. "Are you mad?" "That's the one they're searching for," Bran hissed. "Do you know how much trouble this brings?" "I know," Darren replied firmly. "But I can't hand him over. He's just a child." Bran shook his head. "You're playing with fire. If the enforcers catch you, both of you will vanish." "Then help us," Darren said, his voice steady. "You've bent rules before. Do it one more time." Bran rubbed his beard, conflicted. At last, he sighed. "I'll think about it. But I can't promise anything. Too many eyes are watching." Darren left with Taro, disappointment heavy in his chest. He had hoped for more, but he understood Bran's fear. Still, he knew time was running out. Later that night, Darren woke suddenly to a strange sound. His door controls beeped, as if someone had tried to override them. He jumped to his feet, pulling Taro close. The child's glowing lines brightened sharply, warning him. The sound stopped, and silence returned. Darren waited, heart racing, then whispered, "They're searching rooms already. We have to move faster." The next morning, security checks tightened further. Darren overheard 2 guards speaking near the docks. "They say the missing one has strange powers," one muttered. "It can sense things before they happen." "Then how do we catch it?" the other replied. "If it knows we're coming, we'll never trap it." Darren felt a chill. They were closer to the truth than he had expected. He hurried back to his quarters, determined to act before it was too late. That evening, Bran came to him in secret. "I found a chance," Bran said quietly. "A ship leaves tomorrow, bound for the outer colonies. I can hide you in the cargo hold. But it won't be safe. The enforcers may inspect it." "It's better than waiting here," Darren replied. Bran nodded. "Be ready at dawn." When Bran left, Darren sat beside Taro and spoke gently. "Tomorrow, we'll try to leave. It will be dangerous, but we must try. You trust me, don't you? Taro reached out and placed a small glowing hand on Darren's arm. The warmth spread through his skin, and he felt the child's trust as clearly as if it were spoken aloud. At dawn, Darren wrapped Taro in the cloak once more, and together they moved toward the docks. The station buzzed with activity, but he kept to the shadows. His heart pounded as they approached Bran's ship. But as they neared the cargo hold, Darren saw black armored figures standing guard. The enforcers had already arrived. Bran's plan was broken before it even began. Darren pulled back into the shadows, his mind racing. He could not go forward, and he could not return to his room. The net was closing around them. He whispered to the child, "We'll find another way." And though fear pressed down on him, Darren felt something stronger rising in his chest. He would not surrender. The pursuit had begun, but so had his resolve. For the first time in his life, Darren was no longer running from danger, he was running into it, because protecting Taro meant more than his own safety. It meant something greater than he could yet understand. Darren had learned how to avoid patrols, but the hunt for Taro was growing sharper each day. The enforcers spread across the station, questioning workers and blocking ships from leaving. Darren knew it was only a matter of time before they found him. He needed a new plan, but before he could act, something unexpected happened. It was evening when Darren carried Taro through a quiet service corridor near the lower decks. He hoped to reach an old maintenance hatch that led to forgotten tunnels. Few people used them, and he thought it might be a safe hiding place. But halfway through the corridor, he stopped. Someone was waiting ahead. A tall figure stepped from the shadows. She wore armor that shimmered with silver light, smooth and elegant, far beyond the technology used on the station. Her helmet retracted, revealing a calm face with sharp eyes. She looked directly at Taro and then at Darren. "You have the child," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. "Do not be afraid. I am Myra. I came to protect him." Darren tightened his grip on Taro. His first thought was that this woman was another hunter. Her armor was too advanced, and her words too smooth. "Protect him?" Darren asked. "Everyone says they want him. Why should I believe you?" Myra stepped closer but did not raise a weapon. "Because without me, you will both be caught within hours. The enforcers are closing in. I can take the child to safety." Before Darren could answer, another voice called from behind him. "Do not trust her." He turned quickly, heart pounding. A second woman stood at the other end of the corridor. Her armor was darker, lined with faint red patterns. Her helmet slid back, showing a face as strong and determined as Myra's. She walked forward with confidence. "My name is Nira," she said. "That woman is no guardian. She belongs to a faction that uses bloodlines for their own power. If you hand the child to her, he will never be free. Give him to me instead. I can protect him." Darren felt trapped between them. Myra on one side, Nira on the other, both claiming the same thing yet accusing each other of lies. Taro pressed close to him, glowing marks brightening as if sensing danger. "I don't care who you are," Darren said firmly. "The child stays with me." Myra lifted her hand slightly, palm open. "Human, you are brave, but you cannot fight what is coming. The enforcers will not stop. They will destroy the station if they must. Only I can take him to where he belongs." Nira shook her head. "She speaks half-truths. Yes, the child is important, but she wants him for her people's gain. I want him free. If you stay with her, you will become her pawn. If you stay with me, you may survive. Darren looked from one to the other, anger growing inside him. All I hear are promises and warnings. Yet neither of you explains who this child truly is. Why does everyone want him? What makes him so important? The women exchanged sharp looks. For a moment, neither answered. Then Myra spoke. He is heir to a lost line, the last living carrier of ancient power. His blood can unlock technology forgotten by most races. That is why the enforcers hunt him. They fear what he can awaken. Nira stepped forward. Her words are true, but her intent is not. She wants to control that power. I want to protect him from all who seek to use him. Darren felt his stomach tighten. So the rumors were real. Taro was not just a lost child. He carried something far greater, something that could change entire star systems. But that did not matter to Darren. He looked at Taro, who clung to his arm, frightened and silent. To him, Taro was still just a child who needed safety. Listen to me, Darren said coldly. I will not hand him over to either of you. Until I know the full truth, he stays with me. If you want him, you'll have to take him by force. Myra's eyes softened slightly. I do not wish to fight you, human. Your courage is rare. Perhaps we can speak further, away from here. Nira shook her head sharply. Words are useless. She will try to twist you. If you are wise, you will run from her and follow me. Before Darren could answer, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The enforcers were coming. Myra and Nira both turned their heads, tension filling the air. They are close, Myra said. Then we must move, Nira added. For a moment, Darren thought they would fight each other right there, but instead, both looked at him. It was strange, as if the decision rested on him alone. He tightened his hold on Taro and said, neither of you decides. I do. And I say we move now. He dashed toward a side hatch, pulling Taro with him. Myra and Nira followed, though neither attacked. Together, they entered the old maintenance tunnels. The narrow passages were filled with dust and the smell of rust, but they gave cover from patrols. As they moved, Darren noticed that Myra stayed slightly ahead, scanning for threats, while Nira stayed behind, guarding the rear. It was strange to see them work together when only moments ago they had been enemies. When they finally stopped in a quiet chamber, Darren turned on them both. Tell me why I should trust either of you. You both claim to protect him, but your stories do not match. If you want my help, give me the truth. Myra spoke first. I was sworn to guard the bloodline long ago. I followed the child's trail across systems to keep him alive. Nira answered quickly. And I was sworn to fight those like her. Her order seeks control, not protection. They call themselves guardians, but they are only rulers in disguise. Darren felt his head spin. Two women, two truths, both convincing, both impossible to confirm. He looked at Taro, hoping for a sign. The child stared back, glowing lines shifting like waves of light, but gave no answer. I don't know which of you to believe, Darren admitted. But until I do, the child stays with me. That is final. Neither woman argued further. They simply exchanged hard stares, as if waiting for the right moment to prove themselves. That night, as Darren sat with Taro in the corner of the chamber, he thought about the strange turn his life had taken. Only days ago, he had been a simple worker. Now he was caught between powers far greater than himself, holding a child who carried secrets that could change the galaxy. He looked at Taro's glowing face and whispered, "I don't care what they say you are. To me, you're just Taro. And I'll keep you safe." The child placed a glowing hand on his arm, as if agreeing. Darren felt warmth spread through him, steadying his resolve. Outside in the shadows, Myra and Nira kept silent watch, each waiting for the moment to prove her claim. And Darren knew the hardest part was still to come. The tunnels beneath Outpost 9 were dark and silent, far removed from the noise of the docking bays. Darren had taken Taro there with Myra and Nira following, though he still did not trust either woman. The three of them sat in an abandoned chamber, once used to store tools, now filled with dust and broken crates. For a while, no one spoke. Darren stayed close to Taro, who sat quietly beside him. The child's glowing lines pulsed faintly, a soft rhythm that brought comfort even in the cold. Myra stood near the entrance, her silver armor gleaming faintly, while Nero leaned against the wall, her darker armor blending with the shadows. Both women kept their eyes on each other, like hunters waiting for the other to move first. Darren finally broke the silence. "I want answers. You say the child is important, but neither of you gives me the full truth. If I am to risk my life, I need to know what I'm protecting." Myra stepped forward, her voice calm. "The child is heir to an ancient dynasty, one that ruled the Varan sector thousands of years ago. Their power came not from weapons, but from knowledge. They unlocked technologies no one else could understand. When their empire fell, many tried to steal that knowledge. But only those born with the bloodline could use it. Taro is the last of that bloodline. His body carries codes hidden in his very being." Darren frowned. "Codes? What kind of codes?" Nira answered before Myra could. "Living codes. Patterns written into his blood and skin. The glowing marks you see are not decoration. They are keys. With them, ancient machines can be awakened, machines strong enough to shift the balance of entire worlds." Darren turned to her sharply. "And what do you want with him? If these machines are so powerful, why should I trust that you don't want to use him?" Nira's eyes flashed. "Because I have seen what happens when power is abused. My people fought against Myra's order for generations. They call themselves guardians, but they guard only their control. They will use the child to lock the galaxy under their rule. I want him free of that. I want him safe." Myra's voice grew colder. "And you think your people would not do the same, Nira? You speak of freedom, yet your order uses violence and fear. Do not pretend to be noble." The two women glared at each other, tension thick in the air. Darren raised his voice, cutting between them. "Enough. I don't care about your factions or your wars. All I care about is Taro. He's just a child, and he deserves more than being treated like some weapon or key. Tell me, does he even know who he is?" At his words, both women fell silent. Darren turned to Taro, who looked up at him with wide glowing eyes. The child seemed confused, as if struggling to understand the talk of bloodlines and dynasties. Darren's heart ached. He placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. "I don't care about empires or machines," Darren said softly. "I see a boy who needs protection. That's all that matters to me." Taro's glow brightened, and for a moment, the whole chamber seemed warmer. Darren felt the trust in that light, and it gave him strength. But Myra was not finished. She opened a small device on her wrist, projecting a faint image into the air. It showed a map of stars, with points marked in bright red. These are the sites where the ancient dynasty built their vaults. Most are lost, but with the child, they can be opened again. Whoever controls him controls the knowledge of the ancients. Darren stared at the map. So that's why the enforcers are chasing him. They want that power for themselves. Nira nodded. Yes. And Myra wants the same. Do not be fooled. Myra's eyes hardened, but she did not deny it. Instead, she said, I want to ensure the power is not misused. Without me, the enforcers will take him and spread destruction. My order may not be perfect, but we are the only line between chaos and control. Darren shook his head. You speak of control as if it is safety. But control is still chains. That's not freedom. The women fell silent again. The only sound was the faint hum of Taro's glow. Later that night, as Darren tried to rest, he woke to find Taro standing near the broken crates. The child's marks shone brightly, more than before. Darren sat up quickly. Taro. The glow spread across the floor, forming shapes patterns that moved and shifted like writing. Darren watched in awe as the symbols arranged themselves into images. He saw tall towers, ships of strange design, and vast machines humming with energy. Then he saw battle flames across worlds, fleets clashing in the skies, and the fall of the dynasty. Taro's small body trembled as the vision continued. Darren rushed forward and held him close, breaking the flow of light. The patterns faded, leaving only the soft glow of Taro's skin. The child pressed against him, breathing heavily, as if the visions had cost him strength. Myra stepped closer, her face pale. He remembers. The codes are awakening inside him. Nira's eyes narrowed. And that means others will sense it too. The enforcers will know. They will not stop until they have him. Darren held Taro tighter. Then they'll have to go through me first. He looked at the child's face, glowing softly against his shoulder. Taro had shown him more than any words could. He was not just a key. He was a survivor of something far greater, carrying memories and powers too heavy for a child to bear. Darren whispered, You don't have to face this alone. I'll be with you. The child's glow pulsed once in reply, steady and strong. By morning, Darren knew their time in the tunnels was ending. The enforcers would search deeper, and the visions Taro had released might already have alerted them. Myra and Nira both stood ready, though neither trusted the other. We cannot stay, Myra said. The patrols are tightening. We must leave the station entirely. For once, I agree, Nira added. But do not think I will allow you to guide him, Myra. Your path leads to chains. Darren rose, holding Taro's hand. Neither of you decides. I do. If we leave on my terms. The child is not your weapon. He is under my care. The women did not argue, but their eyes showed they were far from giving up. Each step of the journey would be a battle, not only against the enforcers but also against the silent war between Myra and Nira. Darren looked at the child beside him, small yet carrying the weight of an ancient past. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but he also knew one truth beyond doubt. He would protect Taro, not because of the codes in his blood or the power of forgotten machines, but because the boy was innocent and deserved a chance to choose his own future. And Darren, an ordinary man with no power but his will, would stand against anyone who tried to take that choice away. The small ship floated silently in the dark sky above a cold and broken planet. Darren sat near the control board, staring at the stars, while Taro slept in the back corner under a blanket. The boy's glowing marks had dimmed for now, but Darren knew they could shine again at any moment. He looked tired, but he refused to close his eyes. His mind was full of questions, and none had answers. Myra and Nira sat across from each other, both silent, both watching. They had agreed to stop fighting only because Taro needed rest, but the air was thick with tension. Darren felt like the walls of the ship were closing in. Two women, both powerful, both skilled, both claiming the same child. How could he know who spoke truth? Myra finally broke the silence. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Darren, you must listen. That child is the last of his line. His family ruled with honor before the warlords destroyed them. Nira serves one of those warlords. If she takes him, he will be forced into slavery, used as a tool to rebuild their empire. Nira leaned forward, her hand resting on the table. Her tone was strong, almost cold. That is a lie. Myra is no guardian. She belongs to a hidden group that plays with bloodlines and claims power through manipulation. They do not care about the boy. They only care about the code inside him. They will keep him alive, but they will use him to control others. Darren rubbed his forehead. You both sound so certain. You both tell stories that make sense. But I have seen neither proof. All I know is the boy is frightened, and he trusts me, not you. Nira's eyes softened for the first time. I do not deny that he trusts you. You protected him when others would have sold him. That makes you different. But Myra will twist his future. I have seen her kind before. Myra's hand moved toward her weapon, but she stopped herself. She looked at Darren instead of Nira. Do you not wonder why the hunters followed so quickly? Do you not wonder why his marks glow with such force? He carries codes that unlock ancient ships buried across the stars. Whoever holds him can control those ships. That is why the hunters want him. That is why I swore to guard him. Without me, both you and the boy will be destroyed. Darren leaned back in his chair, thinking. His heart told him to believe no one, yet he could not ignore that both women spoke with deep knowledge of Taro's past. He looked toward the sleeping child. Taro turned in his sleep, mumbling in a language none of them knew. For a moment, the symbols on his arms glowed faintly, lighting the dark cabin with a soft blue glow. Nira's voice lowered. Do you see? He is remembering. The child's own mind holds the truth. But it will come slowly. Until then, we are left with lies and guesses. The ship shook suddenly, pulling everyone back to the moment. Darren rushed to the board and checked the screen. A signal was tracking them from behind. A fleet of hunters had found their trail. We cannot stay here, Darren said quickly. They are closing in. We need to land and hide. Myra pointed to the cracked surface of the planet below. There are ruins down there. Old halls from a time before the warlords. We can hide inside. The hunters will not dare to enter too deep. Nira crossed her arms but gave a small nod. She is right this time. The ruins are dangerous, but they will shield us. Darren guided the ship downward, weaving between broken mountains until the craft landed in a silent canyon. The air was thin but still breathable. Together they stepped out, Myra and Nira both walking with their hands near their weapons. Darren carried Taro on his back. The boy was awake now, his eyes half open, watching quietly. They reached the ruins, tall stones rising like teeth from the ground. Strange carvings glowed faintly across the walls, the same patterns that glowed on Taro's arms. The boy reached out, touching the stone, and the wall opened with a soft hum. A hidden door revealed a dark tunnel inside. Nero looked at Myra. Did you know about this? Myra shook her head. No. Only his blood can open these halls. They stepped inside. The air was cool, filled with echoes of ancient machines. As they moved deeper, lights came alive along the walls, reacting to Taro's presence. The boy walked on his own now, guiding them without fear. Finally they reached a great chamber. In the center stood a round platform, shining with blue energy. Around it were broken machines and rusted weapons from a forgotten war. This is proof, Myra said firmly. These halls belong to his family. They were guardians of this place. Neera's masters destroyed them to gain what lies here. Do not let her twist your mind. Neera stepped forward, her voice strong. No, Darren. Think clearly. If these halls are tied to him, then Myra's people already know of them. Why has she not said this before? Because she planned to use you to bring the boy here. She wanted him to open these gates. That was her goal from the start. Darren felt the weight of their words pressing on him. His hands tightened into fists. Enough. Both of you speak as if he is a key, not a child. But I see him as more than that. He is alive, and he has a choice. Neither of you will take him without his will. Taro stood silently in the center of the room, the blue light shining brighter. For the first time, he spoke in their tongue. His voice was soft but clear. I remember faces. I remember pain. Both of you were there. Both of you served my family once. But I do not belong to you. I belong to my own path. The words echoed through the chamber. Myra and Neera froze, surprise in their eyes. Darren stepped closer to Taro, placing a hand on his shoulder. You heard him, Darren said firmly. He will decide. Until then, I will protect him from all of you. The ground shook again as the hunters' ships landed outside. The sound of boots and machines echoed through the ruins. Myra and Neera drew their weapons, eyes locking on each other once more. Darren raised his rifle, standing between them and the child. The clash of truths had reached its breaking point, and the hunters were about to strike. The ruined moon stretched out beneath them, jagged rocks rising from gray plains like broken teeth. Darren, Taro, Myra, and Neera had found temporary refuge in an old crater. The chamber in the ruins had slowed the hunters, but now their pursuit was relentless. The hum of engines grew louder as dark ships hovered above, casting shadows across the land. Darren carried Taro on his back, feeling the small weight of the child's body and the invisible weight of responsibility. The boy's glowing lines flickered faintly, responding to the tension in the air. Myra and Neera flanked them, weapons drawn, eyes scanning the horizon. For a moment, the four stood together silently, though tension simmered beneath the surface. They're almost here, Neera said, her voice sharp. The hunters will not wait for negotiation. They want him alive, and they will not care what happens to the rest of us. Myra adjusted her stance, armor glinting under the dim light. Then we must protect him. Stand together, or he dies. Darren looked at them both. He had spent days trying to understand their motives, but now the moment was clear. Decisions had to be made, and there was no time for doubts. We fight as one, for the child, not for you, not for me. Only for him. Understand? Both women nodded, reluctantly, and Darren turned his attention to Taro. Are you ready? He asked gently. The boy nodded slightly, fear mixed with trust shining in his eyes. The first wave of hunters landed on the rocky plains, black suits moving in formation. Energy weapons glowed in their hands, scanning the ruins. Darren counted at least 30 of them, their ships still hovering above as backup. He felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer a chase, it was a battle. He set Taro down gently behind a large rock, giving him cover. Myra and Nira positioned themselves on either side of him. Darren's rifle hummed as he powered it up. The first shots rang out, bright energy beams striking the rocks around them. Darren dove behind a boulder, firing at the approaching hunters. His aim was steady, though each strike only slowed the attackers, not stopped them. Taro watched from his hiding place, trembling. Then, almost instinctively, his glowing lines spread across his body, casting a protective light over the area. The hunters faltered, their weapons temporarily disabled by the strange energy. Myra and Nira exchanged a glance of surprise and relief. "Darren, he's doing it?" Myra shouted over the battle. "Yes, but it will not last long," Nira added. "We need to move." Darren nodded. He grabbed Taro and sprinted toward a narrow passage in the rocks. Myra and Nira covered their retreat, firing at the hunters. The moon's gray dust kicked up, clouding vision and masking their movement. As they reached a higher ledge, Darren realized the hunters were closing in from all sides. There was no path forward. The cliffs were steep, the rocks unstable, and behind them, the enemy pressed relentlessly. For the first time, fear gripped him, not for himself, but for Taro. The boy's glow pulsed again, brighter and stronger. Darren felt warmth radiating from him, a strange but comforting power. Taro's small hand reached out, and energy shot toward the hunters, knocking several off their feet. The attack bought them a few precious moments. But then, two of the leading hunters aimed directly at Taro. Darren's heart leaped, and he fired with everything he had, striking one down before it could fire. Myra lunged at the other, disarming the attacker with precise movement. Nira joined them, forcing the hunter back into the shadows. Darren glanced at Taro. "We can't keep fighting like this forever. He's too small to bear this much danger." The child's glow brightened in response, almost as if he understood. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. His hands raised instinctively, and the energy around him expanded. The hunters froze, shields locking against the strange force. The ground beneath them cracked, glowing blue lines spreading across the moon's surface like a web. Even Myra and Nira took a step back, awe in their eyes. Taro's power was immense, beyond anything they had imagined. Darren moved beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "You are safe. I'm here. No one will hurt you." The hunters, sensing the child's power, hesitated. Some dropped their weapons, unsure if they could challenge what they could not understand. The energy around Taro flared once more, and the remaining attackers retreated, scrambling back to their ships. The silence after the battle was heavy. Darren held Taro close, breathing hard. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us all." Taro's glow dimmed, his small chest rising and falling with effort. Myra and Nira stepped forward slowly, respect and caution in their eyes. "You wield more than we expected," Myra said quietly. "He chose his protector wisely." Nira nodded. "And he proved he is more than a tool. Darren, you have done what neither of us could alone. You protected him, not for power, not for your gain, but because it was right. That is rare." Darren shook his head, exhausted. "It was not rare. It was necessary. If I had not protected him, he would be lost." That is all that matters. For the first time, both women seemed to understand the strength of human courage. Myra lowered her weapon, and Nira did the same. The hunters were gone, and for now, the threat was over. Darren looked at Taro, who leaned against him, exhausted but safe. He smiled gently. You are safe now, Taro. Nothing will take you from me. The boy's glow pulsed softly, a sign of agreement. Darren realized that the true power of the child was not just in the glowing codes or ancient knowledge. It was in the bond between them, the trust that had grown stronger than fear, stronger than any weapon. The ruined moon was quiet again, but Darren knew the war was not over. Enemies would return, more clever and more determined. But he had learned something important: the greatest power was not in Taro's blood or in the ancient machines, but in the choices they made together. He looked at Myra and Nira, standing silently, and said firmly, neither of you decides his fate. Only he does. And I will help him choose, not as a weapon, but as a child with a future. Both women nodded slowly. Their eyes showed respect, if not complete agreement. Darren realized that this moment was a turning point not only for the child but for humanity itself. Compassion, courage, and trust could match any power, even one that could move stars. Taro leaned against Darren, his glow fading into the soft light of the ruined moon. Darren whispered, "We survived this, Taro. And we will face whatever comes next together." Above them, the stars sparkled cold and distant. Yet on the ruined moon, a human and a child from a distant line had proven something remarkable. Even in the darkest places, the heart of humanity could shine brighter than any weapon, stronger than any threat, and wiser than any strategy. The battle on the ruined moon had ended, but Darren knew the fight for Taro's safety was far from over. Hunters could return at any time, and the powers hidden in the child were still a target for those who sought control. Yet, for the first time, Darren felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. He was not just a worker from a distant station. He was Taro's protector, and he would carry that responsibility no matter what came. The crater was silent now, dust settling over the broken machines and glowing lines left behind by Taro's power. Myra and Nira stood on either side of Darren, still wary but no longer enemies at this moment. The three adults looked down at the child, who rested on a flat stone, small and glowing faintly, his energy finally quiet. Darren knelt beside Taro, brushing a stray lock of silver hair from the child's face. "We are safe for now," he said softly. "No one can touch you here. You can rest." Taro's eyes opened slowly. The glow in them flickered like candlelight. He reached out with one small hand and touched Darren's cheek. Darren felt warmth spread through him. It was more than a touch, it was trust, acceptance, and something deeper, the bond that had grown between them over these difficult days. Myra stepped closer. "The child is strong," she said quietly. "Stronger than many could imagine. You have protected him well, Darren. Perhaps too well for your own safety, but it was right." Nira nodded. "I do not fully trust her, and I do not trust her order, but I respect your choice. You put the child first, not power or fear. That is rare." Darren shook his head. "I do what anyone should do. I protect the innocent. That is enough. Taro is not a key, not a weapon. He is a child. And that is all that matters." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the winds outside seemed to pause, as if the universe was giving them time to breathe. Finally, Taro spoke, his voice soft but clear. "I am not alone because of power. I am alive because of choice. You chose to protect me. Darren smiled and pulled him close. Yes, you are alive because we made a choice. And you will always have that choice. Myra looked at the child with a mixture of awe and sadness. He is not just a carrier of ancient power, she admitted. He is a being who can change the future because of the strength in his heart, not just the codes in his blood. Nira's expression softened. I see now. It is not the orders or the factions that matter. It is courage, compassion, and the willingness to do what is right. Humans have a way of surprising everyone, even those of us who have seen countless battles. Darren glanced at both women. Then understand this, Taro's future is not yours to decide. It is his. And until he chooses, he stays with me. You may guide, you may advise, but you do not command. Both women paused, weighing his words. Slowly, they nodded. It was a quiet surrender, not of defeat, but of respect. The ruined halls around them seemed to hum softly, the ancient technology recognizing the child's presence but also acknowledging his freedom. Darren realized then that power alone could not dictate the future. Only the heart, the mind, and the choices of those who cared could shape what came next. Taro's glow pulsed once, brighter than before, as if affirming this truth. Darren felt a weight lift from his chest. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to relax. He was tired, but not defeated. They had survived. They had protected the child. And in that moment, the galaxy seemed slightly less dangerous, because human courage had proven stronger than fear. Myra spoke again, softer this time. You will need help. The hunters will return eventually. You cannot face them alone forever. Darren nodded. I know. But we will face them when the time comes. For now, we rebuild, we rest, and we plan. Taro has earned that much. Nero looked toward the exit of the ruins, at the gray plains and the distant stars. The galaxy is wide, and danger will always follow those who hold power. But humans have a way of surviving that even the oldest orders cannot predict. You have proven that today. Darren smiled faintly. We will survive together. That is all that matters. The child shifted slightly, his glowing lines settling into a gentle rhythm. Darren realized that Taro had begun to understand his own strength, not just as a carrier of codes or ancient knowledge, but as a being capable of choice. That understanding was more powerful than any weapon, more important than any faction's plans. Hours passed, and the sky above the ruined moon darkened into the deep blue of night. Stars sparkled far away, distant and cold, yet comforting in their constancy. Darren sat with Taro resting against him, Myra and Nira on watch at the edges of the chamber. For now, the world was still. Darren spoke softly, almost to himself, but Taro heard. You do not have to carry this alone. You are not just a line of power or a target for others. You are alive, and your choices matter more than anything else. Taro's hand moved over Darren's arm, pulsing a soft glow. Darren felt the child's trust and determination radiate like warmth. He realized then that their bond, human to human, child to protector, was stronger than any threat, stronger than any ancient code. Myra broke the silence at last. Perhaps I was wrong to believe only my order could guide him. Perhaps strength comes from more than rules, more than codes. It comes from love, from protection, from courage that chooses right over power. Nira nodded, eyes fixed on the child. He is free. And if he is free, it is because of this human. That is something no one can take away, no matter how clever or powerful. Darren looked at both women, his voice firm. Remember this. He is not yours. He belongs to himself. And as long as I breathe, no one will take that from him. The child's glow brightened once more, soft and steady, filling the ruined chamber with calm light. Darren felt hope stir within him. No matter the dangers that awaited, no matter the hunters or factions that sought Taro, they would face it together. In that quiet chamber on the ruined moon, Darren understood the truth of humanity. It was not strength in numbers, not control over weapons, not ancient knowledge that defined them. It was courage, compassion, and the choice to protect the innocent. And Darren, standing beside a child from a distant line, had proven that humanity could rise above fear, above power, and above any odds. Together, they would face the galaxy, free to choose their own path. Taro rested against him, glowing faintly in the soft blue light of the ruins. Darren smiled, brushing a hand across the child's shoulder. Tomorrow, we find a safe place. A place where you can grow, learn, and be free. Together, we start a new beginning. The stars above shimmered silently, watching over them. And for the first time in many nights, Darren believed that no matter what challenges came, they would face them and survive because the heart of humanity was stronger than any threat.